So we finally got to the night where we're going to be talking about credit, right? And so there's probably some people that's not here tonight that probably need to hear this. But we're going to do two sessions of credit. It won't be the same session. So next week we'll be talking about credit again next week, but we'll be talking about it from a different angle. But I needed two sessions to talk about credit. And we're going to talk about how the credit system really works. Again, thank you for attending here tonight. I know that you could be doing other things. You could be watching that Super Bowl that's going on, but you're here tonight. All right, so let's jump into the training here. One of the things that I like to do is I like to start off our trainings with a scripture. And I'd like to try to find a scripture that is, just want to make sure you guys can still hear me. I thought I clicked the mute button. I want to cover a scripture. I want to cover a scripture that actually. All right, so let's get back into this thing, man. That was me. I think I clicked on something that I wasn't supposed to click on, but I always like to start off with a scripture, and I was struggling tonight to find a scripture about credit. And so I want to read this. And then, probably about 10 minutes before I got on, I actually found some stuff that was probably more relevant than this. So bear with me. But Romans 13:8 says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. And so we talked about this, I believe, last Sunday. We talked about credit health, or having decent credit is like stewardship, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, because we there's a scripture that says that the borrower is slave to the lender. And so what we're saying is that borrowing money is not a sin, but God tells us that we put ourselves in captivity to others when we do. And so we want to be mindful and we want to be cautious with credit. And so when you start repairing your credit, you restore the things that are in order. Because if you mess up your credit, it's because you didn't pay somebody, right? You were late on your payments. And so I went through and I tried to find something in the Bible about credit. And I don't know what I was thinking of. I was just like, Lord, I can't find anything on credit. And you know, God will whisper in your ear, and He whispered in my ear at the last minute. So I didn't have time to really do a deep dive on this, but I want to share with you what I came up with. And this is probably more in line with our talk tonight. But it's found over in Numbers chapter 30, verse 2. And it says, when a man makes a vow to the Lord, or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but he must do everything he said. So when we start talking about taking a pledge is you've given your word. You've said, "Hey, I'm going to do this." When we borrow money, when we take out a loan, that contract that we sign says that we're going to pay X number of dollars for X number of months. And that's our pledge. And we have to stick to the promise that we've made. And so I know that all of us, me included, have been in situations where we didn't pay on time, or we didn't pay at all. And, we got forgiven that debt, right? We got forgiven that debt. That's in the Bible as well. But we made a vow, and we obligated ourselves by a pledge. And it's up to us to not break our word. And to me, that's a great example of what credit is. It's a great example of what we do when we extend ourselves to get credit and to get a loan. We are making a pledge. And so I went over also to Ecclesiastes, and it says, now this one is a little I'm not going to, it was great because I had church today. I'm not going to add to God's word, right? And so this may or may not apply, but it says when you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Now, that vow in this case is a vow to God, right? Do not delay in fulfilling that vow. He has no pleasure in fools. So it tells me that people who don't fulfill their vows, especially to God, are considered fools. Fulfill your vow. Then he goes on to say, it is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. It is better not to go into debt than to go into debt and not pay it. Right? That's the June Collier version. That might not necessarily line up specifically with this scripture, but that's what I sort of felt from this. Okay. And so what I want to share with you tonight is that when we take on obligations, we go out and get a mortgage or whatever the case may be, a car note. When we take those obligations on, fulfill your vow. Fulfill your vow, and you won't have to worry about some of the issues that come up with credit and then having to repair your credit. I'm going to cover one more because, like I said, this was dropped in my lap at the last minute. I haven't had the time to do a deep dive like I normally do. But this is Psalms 15:4, and it says, who despises a vile person but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps an oath even when it hurts and does not change their mind. Okay. In order for us to get a full understanding of this, we got to read the full chapter, right? So give me a second here. We're going to get into the training. This is the Psalm of David, and it starts off by saying, Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? So this is about who's the person, what's the character of the person that dwells in God's sacred tent on his holy mountain. And then it starts to describe the one whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from their heart, whose tongue utters no slander, who does no wrong to a neighbor, who casts no slurs on others, who despises a vile person, but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps an oath even when it hurts and does not change their mind, who lends money to the poor without interest, who does not accept a bribe against the innocent. Okay. And so this is the person. This is that person. And so we want to be able to keep our oath, even when it hurts, even sometimes when we get in a jam and we made an oath that we probably should not have, we still want to make sure that we honor our oath. Okay. And so, with that being said, I'm going to close these out. Hopefully, that gave you enough for tonight to chew on. I'm going to go back and chew on these scriptures myself because, like I said, I like to chew on them before I just kind of throw them out there. And I may have something else to say about it next Sunday. But let's move on and let's talk about a credit report and a credit score. I want to talk about the difference between the two because oftentimes people use them interchangeably. They talk about them interchangeably, but there's a big difference between the two. When we look at the credit report is the raw data. This is the history. This is your trade lines that's on your report. This is the history of your behavior. Did you pay on time? Are you overextended? This is what the lenders take a look at. They're going to review your credit report. Now, the credit score, we're all familiar with that. The credit score is a three-digit number, right? Usually between 350 and 850, right? And so this is a three-digit number that gives us a quick snapshot of whether or not you've been good or bad, right? It is built from the credit report and it predicts the risk. So your credit report tells what you've done. Your credit score predicts how risky you are to lenders. The more risky you are, the higher your interest rate's going to be. And if you get really risky, you may be in a situation where no one wants to loan to you. And so if you want to fix your score, you don't focus on the score. You focus on the report. When you fix the report, the score automatically corrects itself. Okay. So our goal is not to be so concerned with the score. The score is going to do what the score is going to do. But what we've got to do is we've got to look at our credit report and we've got to find the things on our credit report that are having a negative impact on what our credit score shows. All right. So hopefully that makes sense to each and every one of you. Now, there are 5 factors that impact your score. So remember, I told you that you start off with a minimum of a 350 credit score. So a 350 credit score, you can go as high as an 850 credit score. So what does that mean? If I got a 350, I can go as high as 850. That means that there are, I take that back. I think it's a 300. I think it's 300 is the lowest you can get. You can just sign your name and you got a 300 credit score. So we got 550 points that we're working with. And now those points, how do I rack up those points? And so I want you to think of it as a video game. If you're playing a video game and you're trying to get points, some things have small points assigned to them, other things have big points assigned to them. And if you're sharp in a video game, you're trying to get the big points first. The little points are cool, but the big points is where you begin to really go to the next level in that video game. And so the biggest point that you can focus on inside of your credit is your payment history. It accounts for 35% of your score. And so if we take our calculator and we know that there's 550 points that are available to us, and we take 550 times 35%, that tells us that there's 192.5 points available in this category. So the max amount of points you can get in this category is 192.5. Now, what is payment history? Payment history is tracking if you made your payments on time. You got to be consistent and punctual, right? No late payments here. Got to make sure that all of your payments are paid on time. This is the biggest aspect of your credit. Now, one of the things that people struggle with payment history or with repairing their credit is they focus 100% on payment history. And here's what I want to tell you. You don't have control over payment history. You just don't. Now, there are letters, and we'll talk about this next week. There are letters that we can send to get some of this stuff to come off, maybe get it to fall off or whatever, but sometimes it doesn't. And so the best credit repair expert in the world sometimes can't remove things off of your credit report, especially if they're true and verifiable. All right. So the only way you can get things off of your credit report is if they're outdated, expired. Oh, well, that's the same thing. If they're incorrect, outdated, or unverifiable, right? So that means that if they've been on your credit report over 7 years, most stuff, with the exception of certain bankruptcies, most stuff is going to come off in 7 years. So if you got something that's been on your credit for 8 years, we can get that off. If it's incorrect, the information is incorrect, we can get that information off. And then the last part is unverifiable. This is the sweet spot. I teach credit repair. I've written a credit repair course. Um, this is a sweet spot that most people are going after. You know you were late, but by the grace of God, God's grace, we know we sin, but God's grace. And so there's grace with the credit reporting agencies as well, because if they can't prove it, if they can't verify it, then it's got to be removed. And so there's some gray areas that we can work within to get those items that are true off because they're not verifiable. But credit reporting agencies, lenders are getting really, really good at making sure that they keep good records to verify these things. So that's payment history. 192 and a half points available with payment history. The next one is the one that nobody wants to pay attention to. Nobody talks about it. Nobody does anything with it. And that's credit utilization. And credit utilization is worth 30% of your score. So if we know that we have a maximum of 550 points and we've got 30%, that means that credit utilization is worth 165 points, almost as many points as payment history. But nobody focuses on credit utilization. Now, payment history, you're hoping. You're hoping that they can keep the good records. You're hoping that you kind of get that grace that I was talking about. You're hoping. With credit utilization, you have 100% control over credit utilization. So now credit utilization basically says how much of the credit that they have extended to you are you currently using? So if you've got a credit card and that credit card has a $5,000 limit on it, and you have ran that credit card up to $4,999.99, you have maxed out the utilization. You have 100% utilization on that card. And if you have 100% utilization on that card, your score is going to drop. So what they do is they measure your risk. You can have good payment history and all these other things could be good, but if you're maxed out on all of your credit utilization. You're at 100% credit utilization, never been late, got good history, and all the other factors are good. You're still going to have a ding on your credit because they're going to look at your credit and they're going to say, this person is only one step away from missing something because you got a high utilization ratio. Now, you have the ability to control that. Credit utilization is based on revolving debt. I want you to write that down. Credit utilization is based on revolving debt. Here's what that means. Your mortgage is not factored into your credit utilization. Your car loan is not factored into your credit utilization. Revolving debt is credit cards for most people. Now, if you got a home equity line of credit, that would be revolving debt as well. But revolving debt is where I can go out, I can borrow some money, I can pay it back, I can go borrow it again, pay it back, and go borrow it again. That's what a credit card is. I can go swipe $1,000 on my credit card. I can then go and pay off $1,000. Then I can go swipe another $1,000 on that credit card. That's called revolving debt. And your credit utilization score is based on revolving debt, not installment loans. So with a car note, I can go pay an extra $1,000 on that car. I can't go back and borrow that money back out of that car. I just paid the extra $1,000, right? On my car note. I can't go back and get it. I can pay an extra $1,000 on my credit card and go back and get that $1,000 the next day. So credit utilization is all about revolving debt. So the trick here, when I'm telling people about credit and improving their credit, I tell them, let's pay off your credit card debt first. Let's focus heavily on your credit card debt because if we focus on your credit card debt, your credit score will improve quickly. So if you want to see your credit score jump, pay down some credit card debt. And when you pay that credit card debt down, you'll see it in your score within the next 30 days. Okay. Now, you should keep your credit utilization below 30%, no more than 30%. And if you really want some great credit, keep it below 10%. You want to get into the 800 club, keep it below 10%. All right. Now, let's take a look at the 15%. 15% is length of credit history. And this is just the average age of all of your accounts. So I want to share this with you because it's important for you to understand, because it'll help you move differently when you understand how credit works. So the length of your credit history, this means the age. I got American Express that I've had, I think now this year, 20 years. I had that American Express card for 20 years. Okay. I also had some other cards that I picked up that only had maybe 2, 3 years on it. And when I got into some financial problems, I had some financial problems about 10, 15 years ago. I lost a job. I wasn't able to find a job. Things got a little tight. I started burning through my emergency fund. I mean, I was being challenged, right? I was being challenged for real, for real. And I got to a point where I'm looking at my emergency fund and it's being eaten away pretty fast. And I'm like, I got to slow that down, and I don't want to be homeless, and I want to be able to eat. And so I had to make a decision. I had the money, but I had to make a decision. I got to cut off some of these credit cards. I got to stop paying on some of these credit cards. And so I had to make that decision. Why did I make that decision? Because what you have to understand with the credit game and with life in general is I had to look at my life and I had to say, I got this emergency fund, but every month that I don't have a job, it's eating away $3, $4,000, right? And so I'm looking at my account and I can see where it's standing, and I can divide and multiply. And I said, if I continue at this rate, I'm gonna be at $0 in about 3 months. I'd already been out of work for 6 months. I'm gonna be sitting on zero at this rate in 3 months. So I said, I got to do something. And so what I had to do is I had to decide who was not going to get paid. Now, in that decision, I knew I was about to mess up my credit. I've been paying on time, didn't have no problems, but I got to a point where I got to make a decision. Do I keep a roof over my head, or do I take care of Discover, MasterCard? Well, Discover discovered that they was going to be all right. They discovered that they were on the bottom of the totem pole as far as I was concerned. So I made some critical decisions on who was not going to get paid. Now, do you know who got paid? American Express. I never messed up my American Express card. Why? Because I understood length of credit history. I knew that I was going to get back on my feet eventually. And when I got back on my feet, I wanted to make sure that that American Express card was the card that had the longest length of credit history, that I never messed that up. So I paid American Express. Discover, they didn't get paid. Citibank, they didn't get paid because I had just gotten those cards maybe 2, 3 years earlier. So even though it hurt my score, it did not hurt my score as bad when I started rebuilding my credit. When I started rebuilding my credit, I still had that American Express card and I still had great payment history on that American Express card. I had the length of credit history. So, see, when you understand how the system works, it helps you make better decisions even when you fall on hard times. If I didn't know, I would have messed up the American Express card, but I never messed it up. And then when I got back to rebuilding my credit, I was able to rebuild my credit faster because of the decisions I made when I stopped making payments. Now, one of the other things that you're going to see when it comes to credit repair, or you find yourself you're backed up against the wall. Here's what I tell people: decide who's not going to get paid and stick with it. And they said, well, June, what are you talking about? What most people will do is they pay people based on who's calling and harassing them. So American Express calling you this month, want you to pay. You pay them, but you forget you can't pay Visa. Then next month, Visa calling because you missed last month's payment. So you pay Visa, but you miss American Express. And so now what ends up happening is you have two lates instead of one. You got a 30-day late on American Express and you got a 30-day late on Visa. Now, what you could have done is just said, Visa, you're not going to get paid. And you would have had 60-day late on Visa. But when you got ready to clean up your credit, you only would have to work on fixing Visa, not American Express and Visa. And in many cases, people are juggling multiple cards instead of just two. You might have three or four. And this is where they say, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Don't rob Peter to pay Paul. Just stop paying Paul. That's a bar right there. I need to write that one down. Don't rob Peter to pay Paul. Just stop paying Paul. Now, you may be saying, well, June, what kind of finance guy are you to tell me to stop paying my bills? I'm not telling you to stop paying your bills, but I'm also not naive enough to know that situations happen. That situations don't happen. I know that they happen. They happen to me. And so if a situation happens, you got to be able to analyze that situation and say, what's the best method? What's the best route? Somebody's not going to get paid. I'm going to decide that this person's not going to get paid, and they're going to be the ones that's not going to get paid every month. I'm not going to take money and pay them and then stop paying somebody else that I was paying. So now I got two negative items on my credit instead of one or three or whatever the case might be. Hopefully, this is starting to make sense to you because most people just are reactionary. And you've probably made those mistakes where you paid whoever was calling you. You robbed Peter to pay Paul. And then when you finally got back on your feet and you start looking at your credit, you got 10 things that's negative on your credit. And it's harder to fix 10 things than it is to fix one or two. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So that's length of credit history. Now, length of credit history, you can also get someone as an authorized user to give you a good length of credit history. So, for example, your children. You can add your children as an authorized user to many of your credit cards at any age. They don't even have to be teenagers. I mean, you can add them at 3 years of age. Add them as an authorized user. What happens is they now inherit your credit payment history. So don't add your kids to a card that you laid on yourself. You're hurting your kid. You're hurting you and your kids because they will inherit good payment history as well as bad payment history. But if you want to help your children out and they're still, teenagers or whatever, add them as an authorized user to your credit card. You don't have to give them the card. You cut the card up, but now they're added as an authorized user, and now their payment history will start calculating from the time that they're an authorized user. So if you're good with your credit now and you're not making no mistakes, don't do this if you still struggling with your own credit. But if you're good and you want to give your children a leg up, this is that opportunity to add them as an authorized user. Okay. Number four is credit mix. It is worth 10% of your score. So it's worth 55 points. Definitely not the same points as payment history and credit utilization. Credit mix is different types of credit that you have. You got some revolving credit, you got some installment loans. It's a credit mix. I don't know why it matters, but it does. It matters for you to have different types of credit, various types of credit. For most of us, we're going to have that because maybe you got some student loans. That's probably the first type of credit that you get is some student loans. Well, that's installment credit. Then you go out and get a car. That's another installment credit. Then they're offering you a credit card on campus. That's revolving credit. So for most people, you're going to have a mix of credit, right? You're going to have some revolving, you're going to have some installment. And then new credit increase. This is when you go out and you apply for credit. Every time you apply for credit, it's called a hard inquiry. A hard inquiry is worth about 2 to 3 points against you. So there's nothing wrong with applying for credit. Just don't go and apply for a whole bunch of credit cards at one time. Or I appreciate a person that has the attitude of I'm never gonna quit. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna keep going until it works out for me. This is not the place to do that. I had a young lady that I was working with some years ago. We looked at her credit and she had 25 hard inquiries on her credit report. And I was like, what in the world is going on here? And she said she was getting denied. And she said she just kept applying, she's trying to force them to give her some credit. And it doesn't work that way. It just makes it worse because you start to look thirsty. And so now she's got 25 hard inquiries on her credit report in the last year. 25 times 2 to 3 points, that's 75 points right there just because she refused to give up. Not smart. Okay. And so we want to make sure that we are careful when we apply for things. When you go to a car dealership, don't let them run your credit. You should already come to the dealership knowing what your credit score is. You should come to the dealership already got some financing lined up. But if you just, and I talked about this the other week, if you just that day you got up, you didn't even know you were gonna buy a car, and you just drove by and saw a nice car, and you out there, and now you at the dealership, and they pulling your credit, the dealership's gonna pull your credit with a variety of different banks. They're not just gonna pull your credit for one bank, they're gonna pull it for a variety of different banks. And now you got these inquiries. Now they say that when that happens, you're only supposed to get one hard inquiry if you've got multiple inquiries on your credit report in a short time frame for automobile financing or mortgage. But it don't always work out that way. Stop letting the dealerships pull your credit. You should already have all of that. If they don't want to talk to you, you should have myfico.com. You can pull it up on your phone. You can show them this is my FICO score. I know you got to run it your way, but I'm showing you what my FICO score is. And I don't want you to run my credit until we decide on what the price is of this vehicle. Once we decide that, I'll let you run my credit. So I understand that. Okay. So payment history and credit utilization, number one and number two, is where your focus should be. All that other stuff is good to know, good points. You get some good points, but your points are at payment history and credit utilization. That's where we're going to focus because that's 2/3 of your score. All right. All right. So let's move on. Let's move on with this. Now, I just told you what matters most, your payment history and your credit utilization. Are you paying on time? That's the green checks. If you ever pull up your credit report, you see them green checks. It means you paid on time. Credit utilization, are you below 30%? Are you really below 10% of credit utilization? Paying on time is important. Having lower credit utilization is important. Here's what I want to tell you. Paying on time, but being maxed out on your credit cards is going to hurt because here's what utilization tells the lender. It tells the lender how stressed you are right now. And what do I mean by stressed? When you've maxed out your credit cards, something's going on in your life financially. You've maxed out your credit utilization, the credit that has been extended to you. They know that you just one hiccup away for messing up. So that's why utilization counts so much on your score, because if your credit utilization is too high, it's just a matter of time that something happens in your life and you stop juggling that ball. You miss one of the balls. All right. So we got to get these two things under control if we want to have great credit. Now, let's talk about a few myths that people might have about credit. One is checking credit scores. Is that going to hurt? Is that a hard inquiry? A hard inquiry is only when you are applying for a loan. There's all different types of soft inquiries out there. A soft inquiry might be you trying to get your credit score, you checking on your credit. That's a soft inquiry. That's not going to hurt your credit at all. A soft inquiry might be a credit card company checking your credit to send you an offer in the mail. So if you ever get those offers in the mail from American Express and Chase or whatever, and they say that you qualify for their credit card, that's because they've done a soft inquiry. You didn't apply for it. They ran an inquiry on you and you qualified. That's a soft inquiry. So soft inquiries don't hurt your score. A hard inquiry does, but it's only about 2 or 3 points. Okay. Carrying balance helps your score. So somebody used to tell me, well, June, if you're paying off your credit card every month, which is what I recommend doing, if you're paying off your credit card every month, there's nothing to report. You don't have any utilization whatsoever. Your utilization is zero. Well, here's what I want to tell you. Low utilization is great. Paying in full is ideal. Okay. You don't have to have a balance on your credit card to have good credit. That's just a myth. And if you're using the card and then paying it off, using the card, for me, um, what I always teach people is I say, look, I don't use debit cards. I use my credit card, but every Friday, and those of you that's been on this call, you know that every Friday I got Finance Friday. I handle my bills every Friday. And so what happens is I run things on my credit card Monday through Friday, and then on Friday I pay it off. Then next week I run it. And so invariably there will be some balance whenever they report, right? Whenever they report, there'll be a little small balance, but it will only be for whatever I use for that week. So don't worry about having a zero balance on your credit. I'd rather you have a zero balance on your credit than you have a credit utilization of 50%. Okay. Paying collections automatically fixes your credit. No. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So here's what happens. I'm going to use a credit card. Typically, with a credit card, if you are late 180 days, by the time you reach 180 days, they're selling your debt to a collection company. Once they sell your debt to the collection company, there's nothing else that you can do with that credit card company because they don't own your debt anymore. They sold your debt. Now your debt belongs to a collection agency. Now the collection agency is going to try to get full amount, but you can negotiate with the collection agency because they didn't pay full amount. So let's just say you owe $5,000. They might have paid $50 for that, maybe $500 for that. Okay. Pennies on the dollar. And so they only have $500 that they've invested in your debt. Anything above and beyond $500 is a win for them. And so in some cases, you can negotiate with them. But even if you negotiated with them, you owe 5,000, it got sold to a collection agency. The collection agency agreed to take 1,000. You paid them 1,000. The goes away, but the negative payment history doesn't. Okay. So when you're working with a collection agency, what you're trying to get is a pay for delete. I'm willing to pay for this but you need to delete it off my report. That's a pay for delete. Now, another myth that people will have is that it's illegal for anybody to sell your debt to somebody else. And that's not true. Your debt is a liability to you, but your debt is an asset to the lender. The lender lends you money with an interest rate. That is an asset for the lender. And an asset can be sold. If I have a house, I got a mortgage on the house. I still can go sell my house. If I got a vehicle, I got an automobile loan on the vehicle. Don't mean I can't sell the vehicle. It's my asset. So don't get caught up in I'm not paying this debt with the collection agency because the debt was sold without my permission. That's silly. They don't need your permission to sell the asset. Okay. And if you've ever bought a house, you would know this. You buy a house, you go to closing, you sign the paperwork at closing. Your mortgage company is ABC Company. You pay your mortgage maybe 2 times, and then you get a letter in the mail and it says you don't need to send that money to ABC anymore because XYZ just bought it. So now instead of sending your mortgage money to ABC Mortgage, you send it to XYZ because ABC sold it to XYZ. Happens all the time. Nothing illegal about that. Okay. Some people think the more income you make or your income has an effect on your score, and it doesn't. Credit scores are based on your history, not your income. So there could be somebody out there that's making a minimum wage and they could have a perfect credit score, an 850. And there could be somebody out there with $1 million a year that they make and have a 500 credit score. Your income has nothing to do with your credit score. Last thing, closing cards always helps. I know sometimes you get frustrated. You're late on these cards and people calling you, and you finally just get that card taken care of. And the first thing you want to do is you want to close it. Don't do it. Why? Because even though you have the late payments on there, maybe you 60 days, 90 days late on that credit card, and that's counting against you, you also have history on that card. So, see, you got two things reporting on that card. You got your payment history, which is worth how much? 35%. Well, you didn't jacked up the payment history, but you had that card for the last 15 years. Why would you close that card when you got length of credit on there? So you got to be careful making rash decisions because, yeah, I messed up on the payment history part, but I shouldn't close the card down just because I messed up the payment history because I have length of credit. I've had that credit card now for 10 years. So I'm not closing that credit card. They're going to have to close it for me. I ain't voluntarily closing the card. So when you understand how the credit system works, it helps you move differently and make different decisions about your credit and about what it is that you do with your credit. Because all of us will have financial challenges in our life. Some of us, if not most of us, are going to have some negative impact with our credit score. But here's the good news. Even if you jack up your credit today, in 3 to 4 years, 5 years, your credit will be back to great. It's not like it's a permanent thing. You can move your credit score up higher and higher over time. And within 7 years, you could have an 800 credit score because everything has to fall off. All that negative stuff has to fall off. The negative stuff doesn't stay on your credit forever. The problem is that people keep making negative moves as time goes along. So let's take a snapshot today. If I took a snapshot right now today, got a 500 credit score right now today, 2026. Well, I know that in 7 years, As long as from today forward, I don't make no more mistakes on my credit, I could be back at 750, 800 credit score in 7 years. What would that be? That would be 2033, right? And 2033, I could have 800 credit score. I have a better credit score even way before then, but I could guarantee that you have a great credit score in 7 years. The problem and the reason why people carry on bad credit scores for decades is because they never put their foot down in the and draw a line in the sand and say, today is the day that I stop making bad credit choices. The minute you stop making bad credit choices, eventually your credit will get better. It has a 7 year healing time. So even if you can't get none of the stuff off your credit, it will get better over time, as long as you don't make no bad mistakes. And that's why people have bad credit for 10, 15, 20 years, because they never get the good habit of paying their bills on time. Okay? So we're not going to do that. And what you'll notice here, the last statement that I have down here at the bottom is clarity removes fear and confusion. As soon as you understand how all of this works and how it plays in together, you're not confused anymore. And if you're not confused, you're not fearful. Clarity gives you a blueprint, it gives you a plan. So when your back is up against the wall and somebody's not going to get paid, you can say, I remember June was in this situation. And what did he do? He stopped paying the credit cards that had the least amount of credit history, length of credit. Those are the ones he stopped paying because they had the least amount of length of credit. Because I knew at some point I was going to get back on my feet. And when I got back on my feet, I needed that American Express. I needed that 20-year history. I hope this makes sense. I hope there's a light bulb moment for you at this point if you've been making credit mistakes. Okay? Now, we talked about credit utilization. Credit scores will change fast based on your credit utilization. All right? If the maximum you should have is 30%. Your credit utilization should be under 30%. If you're under 10%, that's when the machine is humming real sweet. But if you are above 30%, you become extremely risky. Okay? So you just need to know those things. Now, is it that simple? Nah, it's not quite that simple. You might say, well, June, I got 4 credit cards and I got one credit card that's got 90% utilization on it, but all my other credit cards they got 0%. Well, credit utilization is based on individual cards as well as the totality of your cards. So it would be better if let's just say this card right here at 90% utilization, let's just say that the limit on it is only $1,000. 90% utilization would be a $900. It would be better for you to take that $900 and spread it out over the 4 cards than it would for you to have it on one card. Because credit utilization, they look at the cards and then they look at the total cards. So total, all of these cards, you may have a total of $10,000 of credit utilization and you're using $900 of it. That's under 10%. So you would be great. But if you've got $0 on 3 of these, and then you got the $900 on one, and you're now at 90% utilization, you're going to get dinged. So you got to look out for those things. Okay? Got to be very, very careful and look out for how you do your credit utilization. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay? We'll take some questions at the end because I know there's going to be some questions. Now, there are 2 laws that are governed that deal with credit. The first one is called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And this governs the accuracy and your rights on your credit report. So they can't report anything on you and not give you access to your credit report, not allow you to challenge that, not get it verified. So there's a whole set of laws around that. And then the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, this is a different law, and this law is for primarily for collection companies, what they can do, how they can collect on the debt, what time of the day they can call you, who they can talk to you, who they can talk to or can't talk to about your debt. It gives you all of these things that help you with dealing with debt collections. Okay, and you need to have both of these laws. You need to have both of these. And so there's a book that's out. This book here is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. May 2023. That's the last time that they had the book. It is 117 pages long. This is not an easy read by any stretch of the imagination. I know this because when I created the credit course for my econ, um, I spent many a nights going through 117 pages to create the program that we currently have. But you can get this. I'm gonna put this in the chat. Um, I put this in the chat here right now. You don't need to go there right now because I'm going to show you how to work with this, but I will put this in the chat for you so that you can have access to it at a later time. So I'll copy that and let me put this in the chat for you guys real quick. Okay. So that's the Fair Credit Reporting Act. But also remember, I told you that there was something called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And this is what the collection companies can and cannot do. And this one isn't so bad because it's only 28 pages long. And this one was updated 2010. These are the most recent updates on these, but this says what they can and cannot do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that in the chat as well so that you'll have access to that as well. So you'll be able to, my recommendation is when you get to these pages, download the PDF to your hard drive. So if you just download the PDF to your hard drive, right over here, you can click on this little download button. You'll have that to your hard drive. Okay. And then I'm going to tell you what to do with this because I don't want you reading 117 pages. You don't have to read 117 pages. The reason why I had to read 117 pages because that was 8 years ago when I wrote that course. Today we got AI, and I'm going to show you how to use AI so that you got to read 117 pages. All right, all right. I didn't have AI back then. All right. All right, so now let's talk about using ChatGPT to help us with our credit repair. Okay. If you don't understand something, you can have ChatGPT go through the document and give you a plain English fifth grader understanding of what you're reading. Okay. So, what we want to do, because when you look at this, man, look at it. 117 pages of that. That looks very, very intimidating. So I'm going to show you how to use that right now. So I'm going to download this to my hard drive here real quick. We'll save that. And let's do the fair debt collection as well. I'll download that one as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to head on over to ChatGPT. Hopefully you have an account. You can get a free account. Doesn't cost you anything. I do have a paid account, but you can get a free account. Okay. You click on this little plus button, and what that's going to do, you want to add files. And so I want to add the FCRA. I'm going to add that PDF that we just downloaded. Okay. So now that I've added that PDF that we've just downloaded, I'm now going to talk to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to look at the law and it's going to tell me what I need to do. Okay. So I'm going to say this. Um, I recently, and here's something else you can do. Not only can we upload this document, but you can go and get your credit report from Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. Download your credit report in a PDF and upload the credit report. Have ChatGPT look at your credit report and help you fix your credit. Okay? We didn't have this 10 years ago. But I'm going to ask a question here, and I'm going to say, I have a 60-day late from rooms to go showing on my Experian credit report. What do you recommend I do to remove this negative item? Okay. Just talking to it like I would talk to somebody that's a friend. Okay. And so it's now telling me what I need to do. I need to confirm whether the late is 100% accurate. Now we're going to cover this next week. Right? I don't want to go too deep into this because we'll talk about this next week. So it's going to tell me check the date of the first delinquency, whether it truly hit 60 days or just 30 days. So let me give you an example. Let's say that your credit card statement is due on the 15th and you're not able to pay on the 15th. But let's just say it's due February 15th. You're not able to pay February 15th, but you pay it on March 8th. You pay it like 3 weeks later, March 8th. You were late, but it should never show up on your credit report because you were not 30 days late. So your credit report says 30, 60, 90, 120. So technically you can be late just as long as you ain't 30 days late. If you're not 30 days late, it can't show up on your credit report. Now, you may have to pay a late fee to the credit card company, but it won't show up late on your credit report because it's not 30 days late. You were 28 days late. Another thing you need to know, maybe you were 30 days late and it's showing that you were 60 days late. Does it matter? Yes. I'd rather have a 30-day late than a 60-day late. The longer I'm late, the more points it counts against me. So if a person is 100 days late, they're going to suffer bigger than a person that's 30 days late. So this is why you want to check the dates. When did you send the payment in and when did it clear? Okay. So it's telling you what to do. It's telling you exactly what to do. Dispute through Experian, but do it surgically. It's telling you exactly what to do, right? And it tells you what you have to do. So you got to send a dispute letter in, and Experian must investigate and verify the information with the furnisher under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And it even tells you what section of that is. That the not the section, but it tells you that they just got that from what you uploaded, that PDF that you uploaded. Okay. It tells you some other ideas about a goodwill letter. All right. So it gives you all of these things to do. So I might say, um, and this is really for next week. I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna move on. Um, I might say, give me an example of a um, verification letter that I could send to Experian. Because it's telling me that I need to send a verification letter. So maybe you don't know what a verification letter is. So you can come here and say, give me an example of the verification letter that I should send, right? And so it's going to create the letter. That's your letter. That's your letter. Okay. So, man, ChatGPT can do amazing things for you. All right. All right. So we're going to use ChatGPT to help us fix and repair our credit. We're going to give ChatGPT the law. It's going to go through 117 pages of the law. It's going to tell me what I need to do without me having to go through 117 pages and read all of that. Okay. So, like I could ask a question, how long do they have to respond back to me if this happens? And it would tell me how long they have to respond back. So use ChatGPT to your advantage. This technology is here for us to use to be able to fix and repair our own credit. All right. All right. So, what's our next steps? So, next week, I'm going to go deeper next week into all the different letters, the process of what you need to do. Tonight was you need to have the understanding of how it works. Next week, we're actually going to go into what you should do. This is how you do it. Okay. So this week, I need you to pull your credit report. Now, the government has a site called annualcreditreport.com. So if we go out here to annualcreditreport.com, this is a website that's authorized by federal law that allows you to pull your Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion credit report. When you get here and you get your credit report, I recommend that you save or print your credit report as a PDF. When you save it as a PDF to your machine, now you can take the PDF and upload it to ChatGPT and start talking to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will read your credit report. It'll write letters on behalf of what's on your credit report. It'll help you with your credit. So you don't have to do all of this all by yourself. You just got to know the tools and the resources that are available. So I'm going to have you pull your credit report from annualcreditreport.com. Make sure you get the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Save it as a PDF. Now that you got the PDF of your credit and you have the law, we can upload both documents and we can have ChatGPT go through our credit and tell us what to do first, next, second, third, fourth, and give us the steps. Now I'm going to show you the old school way because I know the old school way of how to do it. But now that you've got ChatGPT, there's no excuse for anybody. No excuse whatsoever. Okay. So you would go to annualcreditreport.com to pull your credit. All right. The second thing is identify which factors hurt the most. So, do you have good payment history, but you still got shaky credit because of high utilization? Or do you have bad payment history and everything else is good? Do you have weak payment history, length of credit? Now is the time for you to look at your credit report and go through the 5 factors that we talked about to figure out where am I having a pain point at? What's my pain point here? Okay. And then next Sunday, we'll be ready to get into credit repair and work the strategies that we have. Okay. So we want to look for any errors. We want to look for utilization. We want to look at all of the things that's going on with our credit report. All right. So I'm going to break here. It is 9:38. I'm about 8 minutes over, but I think that's pretty decent. We're going to stop sharing here at this point. If you got to go, I understand. If you got to leave, we're done with the training. What we're going to do now is we're going to answer any questions that you might have about credit. I'll answer any questions that you might have about credit. So